Perfect. We're recording that. Nilesh, are we good to go? I guess so. Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Puneet Kataria. Today, we are here along with Ross. Quick introduction, Ross, and I'm not sure if I'll do the justice to all the experience that you bring in from B2B SaaS world. So Ross GD Fulton, am I saying your name right, Ross?
Yeah, I've got to throw that GD in. Apparently it makes me sound more intelligent, so I was told to put it in. So.
There you go. So Ross has spent about 17 years enabling B2B software companies and their partners to succeed through the design and execution of value-based outcome lifecycles for their customers. So today, Ross is the founder and CEO of Valuize Consulting. Ross serves the Valuize Consulting team as they drive sustainable growth for B2B SaaS companies by designing and operationalizing unified customer acquisition, adoption, and expansion strategies. So thank you so much, Ross, and welcome for this webinar. And thank you for taking time to have this discussion with us.
Well, my pleasure. I thank you for having me. It's always a great pleasure of mine to talk with experts like yourself and talk about this important topic.
Well, the truth is we're learning ourselves, and very quickly about myself. So my name is Puneet Kataria. I'm the founder and CEO of CustomerSuccessBox. Prior to today, I've been in the corporate world, been selling B2B SaaS, was brought up as an engineer originally, and then moved to the dark side, started selling B2B SaaS. And I was eventually, I found myself to be incentivized essentially on MRR. And I realized that there was a big leak in the bucket. So here I am, all chips in on customer success. So today, I think, Ross, what Ross really brings on board is his experience on, as he mentions, operationalizing all of this stuff and making sure that the customer success is delivered in the end. We all know the why of why we need customer success. I think that is sorted. What will customer success bring to a business? That is very sorted. We wanna pick Ross's brain today, essentially to understand how do we do this, when do we do this, and that fundamentally is going to be the topic of our conversation. So Ross, do you wanna start by talking about your background and then maybe why customer success what about customer success, and we dive into the topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the intro. Lots of big marketing hyperbole in there. In essence, what we do at Valuize is help B2B SaaS companies scale their retention and expansion of their customers and revenue. Valuize initially, I launched Valuize a couple of years ago, so we're still a relatively young company. We were really focused on helping companies design the how, in terms of how do we generate that revenue and customer retention and expansion within our organizations, because we at Valuize certainly prescribe that retention and expansion is how B2B SaaS companies today sustainably grow. They can no longer sustainably grow just simply through the acquisition of new customers. So we were focused on building and designing that how, which we can get into today. And then we sort of started to feel like, hey, we're not really delivering the optimum value to our customers that we believe we can. We think we can go a step further. We're looking at how the customer success technology market is maturing. And actually, we should be working with our clients on how to then operationalize and automate and scale these strategies we're helping them design. And so we do both today. I describe the team that I serve in Valuize as being bilingual, in that they can do that design and build of the strategy. How do we drive that customer and revenue retention and expansion through nailing this big subject of adoption. But then they are very deep into the technology and have the technical chops to then, as I say, lift that and operationalize that into market leading platforms out there in the market, thinking about issues around data and data integration, automation of playbooks and all that good stuff. And as you say, yeah, go ahead.
No, so sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but before we dive into, I think all the details, let's take a step back and I would love to hear from you. When do you think an organization is actually ready for customer success? Are there any prerequisites that somebody should be checking boxes before they're ready for it?
For customer success or customer success technology? Because I'd say they're two different paradigms.
I think for customer success, because customer success technology, it'll be good to know if there is a better time for customer success technology itself, but definitely for customer success.
Yeah, for customer success as a strategy, it's day one. I mean, to me, customer success is as fundamental as the concept of product market fit for a B2B SaaS company. And certainly through all the good lean startup and Steve Blank and all that good stuff, the concept around establishing that market fit is priority number one for a new software company, aka a startup. And I would bucket the definition and the beginning of the design of that customer success strategy as being required as early, because ultimately having product market fit in terms of, hey, there's a product, we have a product that solves a problem for a market is great. But if you can't actually execute the value realization behind that problem, or solving that problem for the customers, i.e. getting them to adopt the product, then the product market fit today is largely redundant. Because this concept around, hey, we have feature functions X, Y, and Z in our product, and or we have this product at a certain price point, and or we solve this big high level value proposition, they're all commodities now in B2B SaaS. There's very little differentiation space in those types of areas because we all have access to the same pre-built machine learning capabilities from platform vendors like Google. Everyone can build APIs coming out of their ears and integrating into all other different types of products. But where we can differentiate is really helping our customers and our market understand how we as a vendor can help them realize value from our product through adoption. What is that prescriptive kind of motion that you as a vendor can give to your customers to say, hey, take our product, take our collection of feature functions, apply it to the jobs you're performing, but apply it in these ways, go through these steps with us to leverage this feature function to get to these outcomes. That to me is the essence now of product market fit. And that science around here's what you need to do to get to these outcomes, that to me is really the nucleus of customer success strategy. So the short answer is day one. It's customer success. If you're not thinking about it day one, you're eventually going to fall into a hole where you're going to be wondering, right, well, how do I actually start retaining and expanding these customers that I'm acquiring here? And why not think about that proactively from day one?
No, I think you're spot on. And as lots of B2B founders are directly actually on day one are working with customers. In fact, there are no products. There are no products which will survive if they are built in a silo. On day one, you want to be, I think the number one person who needs to have a seat on that product management, product discussion, every feature function that gets developed on that table is going to be a customer. More the better, actually. Not more the better, but at least 4, 5, 10. And that sort of starts the product market fit journey starts with doing true customer success. But specifically, when do you start setting up the customer success org? When is it time to hire your first customer success manager? Because at some point, founder will sort of step back and slowly, I don't think it happens in one day, it slowly starts to step back saying, okay, we understand what the market needs, and I go back, develop. You always want to keep coming back and keep validating, keep checking. But when do you hire your first customer success managers? And by the way, should the first CS org member be the success manager or the head of success or head of customer success? That's another very interesting question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I draw parallels to what is generally regarded as the best practice answer to this question, but in a sales context, in terms of generally you speak to successful founders and/or their experienced investors, and generally you're saying, hey, the CEO or the founder should be leading, let's say, the first $1 million of ARR in sales for the company and building that sales playbook, and then bringing in a team to start to scale and start to execute that playbook on behalf of the company, and allowing the founder to back away from that particular role. Customer success is the same for me, in that if the founding team or the founder hasn't start to build that playbook around, right, well, how do we actually drive true adoption within our customer base, and therefore drive that retention and expansion of our customers, then they aren't ready to really start to build out a customer success organization, because though as founders, they're the ones that have built the product and have identified the problem, and therefore in theory the solution to solve the problem. Therefore they are the best people to start building the science that I would think of as being at the root of the design of the customer success strategy. Bringing someone in either as a leader or as an individual contributor to build that science for them from scratch. I'd say, yeah, it is maybe just giving them a get out of jail free card as it relates to this very important need. Now, certainly if you have a very domain centric, very domain specific product, and you don't necessarily have that depth of domain experience in the company, then I would question whether you can truly get to product market fit anyway. But maybe you can get close enough, but then bring in a CS person who has that domain experience, which you've recognized as critical to achieving that goal of adoption, because it's not just about the technology, it's really about the domain dialect that wraps around the technology. But yeah, and in essence, to me, it's on the founders to build that first version of a science that would sit in the customer success strategy. Then once that's been proven to an extent, then sure, start hiring an organization to start executing that science through playbooks or whatever you want to call them. Individual contributor versus leader. Ultimately, in the early stage of a company, everyone's an individual contributor to an extent, because we're all wearing multiple hats. I think I would certainly, at least without putting a job title on it, hire someone with experience. Hire the best person you can afford, basically. They don't necessarily need to have been a VP of CS multiple times over. If they have been, and they're willing to come into your startup environment and wear the multiple hats and roll up the sleeves, carry out the business reviews, et cetera, on their own, great. But yeah, hire the best person you can. But I think that hiring decision, again, it's being very aware of as to whether does your best of breed customer success professional have domain experience in relation to your market, or do they need more of the technology experience? Because actually your product, it's fairly generic as it relates to domain, but it's a very technical product, and it's maybe some advanced analytics type of play. Because yeah, trying to catch the unicorn that's got all the domain experience and all the technology experience, it's hard to do. So I would trade off one way or the other based on, again, that science that you have built that relates to how you drive success in your customers.
No, spot on. I think bringing in a customer success manager who can truly empathize with your customers as a domain expert, and if you have the advantage of technology which can be coached, but domain which is more tricky, that's actually the hack out there to get the best of customer success managers, which are generally very hard to find. I think lots of folks who are likely on the webinar today. So yes, you guys are special. It's hard to find you.
Absolutely, yeah. And another point I'll very quickly add is, again, as that founding team, having built that V1 of the science that is going to be sort of the root of your customer success strategy and playbooks, it could well be that you've identified, hey, those playbooks, that science can actually be largely driven through technology. And so the first step isn't necessarily hiring a customer-facing kind of high-touch CS professional, but actually it's hiring someone and actually in addition acquiring and investing in technology that allows you to execute the playbooks through technology, because actually it's an automated or largely automated process that you can go through, whether that's driven by your economics of your business and the CAC and the actual ARR you're selling at, or whether it's just actually, hey, the best CX, the best customer experience, and the way we get our customers to their outcomes is actually an in-product experience driven through automated notifications and all that good stuff. And so actually building out an army of CSMs is the last thing you need. So I'd be thinking about that as well.
So I think you make a very good point, but what we've seen is, and feel free to sort of dive in. So what we've seen, technology works in a certain category of products where the customers do not expect a white glove service; they actually expect a self-serve service. And there are lots of products in the B2B SaaS space where the customers are not paying, in fact, where they can expect a human intervention or a human handholding to be onboarding them or helping them towards success. But they do expect a seamless experience and a lot of technology pushes. But there are then products which are more mission critical, which are solving more mission critical problems and business. They create a business impact. I think there, day one, customers truly expecting human intervention, frankly. And there, and one data point, what we've seen is there, I think the founders and even the early customer success team can be living without the technology part till about first 50 customers, where you think it's more mission critical, has to be human intervention driven. So, but first 50 customers, beyond 50, what we've seen is, so my go-to statement is, for first 50 customers, you should know their names, where they live, their birth dates, and their child's name as well, and their anniversary too, if you can. And that you should know, because for the first 50 customers, you don't know that, then likely nobody can help, no technology can help you, if I can put it like that. It's an extreme way of obviously saying that. But beyond 50, I think it becomes too much. You cannot, rely on the rudimentary, some of the processes and a lot of things going on in your head. And that's where you need to translate all that knowledge into more structured processes within your organization so that they can be executed. That's what, at least, what we've seen. I don't know if you agree. If 50 is the magical number, what you've seen, at least.
Yeah, I think, without sort of putting a number on it, I think certainly the sentiment of what you describe around that intelligence around your customers is critical. I think I would push back on any sort of thought exercise that said, hey, that exercise around acquiring that customer information, the accountability around acquiring that customer information begins with the CS organization, or begins with that part of the customer journey. It begins in the sales process. It begins in the acquisition motion. And certainly what we prescribe at Valuize is that the design of your customer success strategy and the consequential execution of your CS strategy, it begins pre-sale. It is not a post-sale exclusive motion. It begins pre-sale. And that ranges from indeed acquiring and obtaining and starting to build those relationships with your customers pre-sale and understanding when their birthday is, et cetera, but also obviously building and designing and prescribing the outcomes and the value that they're going to realize before you actually acquire them. And you're transitioning that IP into the post-sale, so you're hitting the ground running around the actual delivery of those outcomes, rather than discovering and planning and agreeing those outcomes with the customer after they've purchased a solution, because the risk of misalignment is huge. I think the role of obviously the person, the human, in that discovery and qualification and agreement process that happens pre-sale or post-sale around that customer information is critical. Absolutely, you can't use technology simply to do that. Again, in the B2C space, your economics require you to do it through registration forms and what have you. But certainly, if we talk in an early stage company context, I'm a big believer in the whole philosophy of do things that don't scale early on. And you look at, I just love so many stories out there, the Airbnb story where they're going to their hosts' apartments and taking photos of their apartments for them, et cetera. Big believer in that. And you shouldn't just be cutting corners by using technology as you described.
No, spot on. In fact, your point about bringing in success pre-sales, actually, the couple of things that immediately come to my mind. Number one, I think customer success is not just a responsibility of the customer success managers. It needs to be owned holistically by the entire organization. And one of the, there's a classical case study of HubSpot. I'm sure you'll recall where they were facing huge churn. What they did was like, hold on, something's not right. We're facing a lot of churn in spite of having an army of customer success managers. What they did was they started pulling out all the churn data on one side and customer success managers and started correlating that which of those customer success managers are causing the churn or which are not working out. Guess what they defined? There was hardly any variance between performance of almost all customer success managers. Almost everybody is churning exactly the same, 0.1, 0.2% plus minus. Then they started wondering, is it the customer success process? What's going on? And then they went ahead and correlated the churn data with the sales manager's data. And that's when, whoop, all the variance just showed up. They realized that there are certain sales managers who are just obviously promising the moon and not bringing in the right customer, all of that stuff. And then they had to restructure the entire incentive structure of the sales team to the long-term ARR and LTV versus the immediate MRR that they're bringing in. And to your point, yes, customer success comes in way, way, way sooner.
Yeah,
so,
every organization I've worked in, both as a full-time leader and now organizations we serve as Valuize, as clients, has an element of that when we first start working with them. And you mentioned in the introduction that with Valuize, we talk about the unification of the customer lifecycle, i.e. the unification of that acquisition motion with the adoption, retention, and expansion motion. That unification concept, yeah, is core to our methodology. Any client or prospective client of ours or a company that I just talked to who is looking to solve a challenge around the retention and or lack of expansion of their customers or revenue, but is refusing to explore, acknowledge, and drive potentially the need for change in the acquisition motion to solve for that problem around retention and expansion, we walk away because we just know off the bat that there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit there. And whether we solve that through, as you described, the evolution of incentivization models, enablement of the sales organization, integration of more customer success principles into their sales discovery and qualification and presentation motions, lots of things we do in that regard, but it's a critical place to look for sure.
No, lovely. I think with that said, let's now dive into how do we actually go about doing and achieving all of this from, unifying acquisition, adoption, and retention. And before you answer that, I do want to invite all the attendees. So thanks for joining, and feel free to chime in. We're watching the chat, and feel free to chime in with your comments and questions and thumbs up and thumbs down, and everything's welcome. Any interaction, and let's keep it interactive. Give us a feeling that it's just not the two of us, but all of us here. So cool. With that said, Ross, how do we get started? And if you can also sort of talk about, in your experience, what sort of organizations you've been working with, because we are very specifically focused on B2B SaaS, and I'm not sure if you're only specifically covering B2B SaaS or if you're going beyond. So just give that context, and that'll be useful.
I mean, our context, we specialize in B2B SaaS companies. We're very aware that what we do is very beneficial to any organization that is at the mercy of subscription revenue unit economics, i.e. their growth is dependent, their sustainable growth is dependent on retaining and expanding revenue over lifetimes, not just that acquisition motion. But certainly we zero in and specialize on B2B SaaS companies. And achieve the outcomes I've been describing earlier. So
specifically in B2B SaaS, so what stage do you typically engage, and your experience, and then we can dive into the how part.
Mm-hmm. In our organization, we have experience across the spectrum, including early stage companies. To be candid, our ideal customer profile typically begins with companies with around 100 employees. We certainly do have clients maybe down to that 50 employee type of organization. We have the likes of GE Digital as a client. So we're talking small countries. But really our sweet spot, I'd say, are companies that would define themselves as growth stage companies, possibly late growth stage companies, through to mid growth stage companies. And I'm candid around that purely because just the business model that we as Valuize run around being a strategy and technology consulting company sometimes precludes us from working with the earlier stage companies as much as we can help them. To be blunt, just commercially, there are parameters both organizations have to be considerate of. But certainly our IP and our thought leadership applies to those early stage companies as well. But our client base generally begins at that early sort of growth stage company size, and then it goes through to public companies.
Got it. And I'm assuming with 100 employees, you mean about 5-10 mil ARR plus. Got it. So that
I'd say about 5 mil ARR is another good way. I always used to use sort of say, hey, they're Series B ready, but that goalpost is continuously moving. There are pre-revenue companies raising $14 million Series A's these days. So I've given up using that as a classification. But yeah, ARR wise, I'd say 5 million ARR is probably where we begin.
Oh, there you go. I'm expecting lots of comments on, like, okay, how do we do that? Pre-growth stage and Series B, yeah. So on that topic, another day. But coming back to customer success, so if I'm a $5 million, $10 million ARR run rate, and we are setting up customer success org, what are we looking for? Where should we start? Give us the prescription that you coach and preach.
Yeah. So our sort of focus on starting at that stage at a minimum, we have seen them, and we do have a couple of clients that came to us in this state. But generally, if they're at that 5 million ARR, certainly getting towards a 10 million ARR, they have some form of CS organization that they are claiming are executing some form of customer success strategy. So we're not coming in with necessarily a blank sheet of paper as it relates to their org, but we really don't begin or end with the conversation around the organization. It's the strategy that we really zero in on. And what we define as customer success strategy, and where we begin with our clients, is, do you have the science, as I've been referring to it earlier, do you have that science understood around how you deliver outcomes to your customers that sustain or achieve and sustain recurring value? Because a lot of organizations we come to are certainly at that sort of 5 million ARR mark, say, hey, we have a customer success strategy, we have a customer success team, and the focus is getting their customers to use the product. Usage of the product is not adoption; it's just usage. If we have someone in an end customer, a customer of our clients who is using the product, that does not mean they're necessarily achieving or sustaining their value realization through that usage. So we define adoption as being the achievement and sustainment of value realization through the usage of the product. And so that to be able to define that and be able to measure that, we need to be able to define the outcomes that a customer needs to achieve that will equate to that value for them. If we can map out those outcomes and sequence them across a journey, and that's how we would define a customer journey, it's a sequencing of outcomes, then we can start to map the science that underlies each of those outcomes in terms of, hey, what do we as the vendor and they as the customer need to be performing day in, day out to get to that outcome and then sustain the achievement of that outcome. And that mapping of those activities that they as the customer and we as the vendor need to perform in and out of the product, they're the playbooks, they're the customer success playbooks. And we certainly find that a lot of organizations, and this goes across the spectrum of size of organization we work with, they haven't defined those outcomes. They've defined, hey, these are the feature functions of our product. This is the big high level value proposition that our product solves, and here's how much it costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They may well have some good playbooks designed around how we get customers and users into the product, how we get them using it, but they haven't mapped that to actually the outcomes that equate to and when aggregated, get to the big, hairy strategic goal. So we really focus on beginning with, do you have those outcomes? If you have those outcomes, do you have the science mapped per outcome? If you don't, let's map those. They become your playbooks, and then we start operationalizing those playbooks in the technology that they either have in place today or that they're looking at investing in. And critical to those playbooks is the conversation around data. And do we have the data defined and understood that we can use to measure a user's or customer's progress towards that particular outcome, and then their sustainment of that outcome moving forward? Because that data is really where investments in technology come to fruition.
No, cool. And I think before we jump into data, this is very interesting. The way we put it is, we believe customer success is sort of becoming a generic term, but what it really should mean, we would ideally want to break customer success as a term down into 3 terms, just to be clear. Customer success, which is the pinnacle of the nirvana that you want to reach, which is essentially delivering outcomes, the business outcomes. Second is product success, which is essentially product feature functionality adoption. You need the product adoption for customer success or business outcome delivery, but product adoption will not necessarily be customer success. Yes, you're spot on. And then the third part, which a lot of times we speak about, but has nothing to do with customer success, is company success. I mean, it has, of course, something to do with, hopefully, what you want to do is getting all these 3 aligned: company success, product success, customer success. That's how we call it. That comment aside, I do want to dig into, Ross, you've been stressing on, and this is the first time I'm actually hearing this term getting used. So I'm very curious to learn, when you say achieve recurring value, get that, but sustain recurring value. Can you zoom in on that term? Why do you think once value is delivered, what are the threats to sustaining that delivery, and how do we counter that? How do we take care of that?
Yeah. I think the sustainment is key. In the same way that we obviously regard the future and success of a B2B SaaS company success, as you may describe it, is dependent on sustainable growth. The sustainable growth of a B2B SaaS company is dependent on the sustained recurring value realization within their customers. If we take onboarding for an example, onboarding is rightly recognized by now, I think, a lot of companies as being a very key part of the overall customer journey, and that we need to nail that phase of the customer journey to really set ourselves on the right path to hopefully retain and expand that customer over the long term. If we fail with onboarding, we're really going to struggle for the later stages of that customer journey. The good organizations recognize that onboarding isn't getting users into the product and then doing stuff in the product. Onboarding is getting them to that first value. It's getting them to that first value as quickly as possible. And then maybe there's another two or three value outcomes that follow that within that onboarding phase. But it's getting them to those value outcomes. That's what is what onboarding is all about. But we do see a lot of organizations who say, hey, we're nailing this. We've defined that first outcome, which we're recognizing is the kind of key milestone to trigger onboarding is successful. And then they're done. They're like, okay, and we're done. And they go on to the next customer who's entering this onboarding journey. And that customer that just exited onboarding is, maybe they have a customer success manager assigned to them. Maybe they don't, I don't know. But it regresses back into, are they using the product? And there isn't another outcome planned for them. Or let alone another sort of 3 or 4 or 5 outcomes planned for them for the rest of their lifetime as a customer, or at least that first year of subscription as a customer of that SaaS vendor. And so if we only have that one aha moment, we have that one piece of value that occurs during onboarding, yet we want to retain this customer for ideally 3 years, maybe 5 years. Yeah. We are really going to be struggling when we get to that first renewal point in sort of 9 months later, after the completion of onboarding, say after 3 months, to say, look, well, yeah, you remember that piece of value you got to in month 3? Just let's hold on to that tightly, and this is why you should renew, let alone sort of year 2 and year 3. And then we also talk about expansion and the criticality of being able to expand our customers to be able to grow and sustainably grow our B2B SaaS company, and the efficiency of expanding our customers and acquiring that expansion revenue. It's very hard to expand a customer if you can't show them by expanding their investment, they achieve these new value-based outcomes. So we've got to map these outcomes out. And that's what we mean by sustaining value realization. It's not just achieving value number one or achieving this grand value moment. It's having a journey of outcomes that, if and when achieved, creates sustained value. You can also look at the sustainment concept at more of a change management perspective as well within your customers, to say, hey, well, maybe the first value was achieved by that particular user performing that particular job. If that user leaves the organization, we need to make sure that the new user coming in can replicate that piece of value. And that, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but there's that element of sustainment as well. So that's what we mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think very well said. The way I put it is, in the subscription economy, in the SaaS world, obviously subscription economy, we are asking our customers to give us not one-time payment, not one-time revenue, but a stream of revenue. Every month, month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year, we are expecting a stream of revenue, and very similarly, and you know, they are expecting a stream of value, not one-time value. Something, the outcome which was delivered last quarter is now delivered. Now it's time to take them to the next level. And I think very well.
Yeah, and what I talk to our clients about is absolutely, you as the CRO, the CEO, as well as your board, it's ARR, ARR, ARR. Where's your ARV? Where's your annual recurring value? How are you measuring that for your customers? Are your customers able to talk about you as their vendor in an ARV concept? They can absolutely talk about, well, here's how much ARR we're spending on them as a vendor, but can they also then produce the ARV metric to offset that ARR? If you as a vendor can't do it, it's highly unlikely your customer can do it. So we need to be able to think about that ARV concept. But it's, yeah, I'd say I get a lot of like wide-eyed, oh yeah, that sounds terrifying, but it's what we enable the science to create. And then we start obviously thinking about the technology piece and saying, well, great, in the same way that we want to economically and efficiently generate that ARR as a B2B SaaS vendor, we want to make sure that we can economically and efficiently generate that ARV, because we can't afford to throw every man and his dog at the problem to try and generate the ARV. We've got to do it in an economically cognizant way and be able to measure the cost of customer success in our company, because it's a key economic driver, but also cost for the B2B SaaS vendor. And that again is where technology can come in and actually help drive down the cost of your customer success while not reducing the actual ARV that you're generating for your customers.
Well, I think that's a fantastic point. I'm taking that. I'm likely going to be stealing the ARV piece, and we'll pass on credit for the term back. Diving in, interesting. We have some questions here. Okay, so I think we have Ted, and Ted, thanks for your question. Now, Ted wants to know, when do we actually make the investment in technology, and how to make a business case? I think will also be interesting for Ted. He's working on the case for the investment. So what's the business case for technology? When is the right time to bring in technology? I, of course, have my views, but Ross, you first.
Yeah, so let's take that in two parts. So when to invest in technology. It might sound somewhat flippant, but the first port of call, the first variable to consider is, do we have a playbook to apply to the technology? And by a playbook, I mean, have we got at least one outcome, one value-based outcome, i.e. an adoption milestone? Let's say it's value, it may say it's outcome number one, which represents the success of our onboarding motion. Do we have that outcome defined, and then the steps defined to achieve that outcome? Because if we don't have at least one of those defined, what are we operationalizing in the customer success technology? And it might sound flippant to a number of people on this attending and listening to this, but there are a stunning amount of organizations out there that think, well, if we buy and invest in the customer success technology, it will give us our customer success strategy, i.e. it will give us our playbooks that are specific to us as a B2B SaaS vendor that create the outcomes that are desired by our customers. And that is complete nonsense. It's the same, think about CRM and think about investing in a CRM platform. You do not invest in a CRM platform thinking it's going to give you a market winning sales strategy. A CRM platform is generally going to operationalize, drive efficiency, automation, maybe increase the intelligence of your sales execution, but you need to build your own sales strategy. It's the same with customer success. But some people, for some reason, there's a lot of people out there that, and to be blunt, a lot of vendors out there that say, hey, buy our solution and you get this all singing, all dancing customer success strategy. So when to invest, have a V1 of your CS strategy, have a playbook or two that you'll think, right, we've proven that doesn't work. We've maybe gone through the whole do things that don't scale mentality to prove that it works. And now we need to scale it because we've proven it works. And therefore we want to invest in technology to do that. Again, reiterating that definition of playbook includes the definition of what data do we require to be able to drive the completion of the playbook, as well as measure the progress within that playbook and the sustainment of the outcome at the end of that playbook. One of the big, going to the business case conversation, one of the big pieces of value that investing in CS technology brings is that data piece. It's what we call in Valuize the customer data foundation. It's allowing that customer data foundation to be established inside your organization that is capturing key information, like you mentioned, Puneet, around just who is our customer, and that sort of human-centric data, but integrating with that product usage data as a key data input to say who is doing what in our product, and are they using the right parts of the product with the right cadence in the way that we've mapped out that equates to them getting to value, and getting that usage data in, support ticket data, payments data, maybe marketing type data if you're using a kind of content-driven tech touch type of strategy would be critical as well. But I think in terms, just to finish on the business case conversation, there's two ways of looking at the business case, and I would include both elements. One is this is going to increase our ability to get more customers to these value-based outcomes and sustain that value realization. Therefore, it's going to enable us as a business to retain and expand more revenue and increase our net revenue retention. No CEO of a B2B SaaS company that knows what they're doing is going to turn that down. Second element is operational efficiency. And so, hey, we can do more with less. And especially if you're more of an established organization, maybe you're into those hundreds of employees, maybe you've got a multi-person CS organization. Generally, you're going to be able to have you should have a better, an easier time asking and building a business case to invest in some technology than to say, hey, here's a business case to hire 10 more CSMs that are hard to find, are getting more and more expensive. But instead, we can go spend whatever, say 50 grand a year on a CS technology platform, some money on some help getting to value with that CS technology platform. That's a much more compelling business case.
Yeah, and on the very sides, like I think the fact that CSMs are getting expensive is also an equation because everybody's realizing that the value that a customer success manager also brings in. Having said that, you're 100% spot on operational efficiency. This is one of those things that we take as one of our own outcomes because as a customer success vendor, we look at accounts per CSM or MRR per CSM and when we start with any of our customers, we take that as a baseline, and then we would like to track it over time, how we are extending more and more accounts to be included as part of the customer success program. Because typically, every organization will have like a tiered pyramid structure where top tiers are always, having access to customer success programs, and the lower tiers are sort of missed on. So our encouragement is if we can make it more operationally efficient, then we can add more accounts to the program. Mm-hmm. Just quickly, my comments on when to bring in technology. Like I mentioned, so I'm still sticking to 50, 100 customers is where it sort of becomes difficult to to manage without technology. But having said that, I'm 100% in agreement with what Ross exactly mentioned. It's always about the practice first and technology later. And I'm going to give you a very simple analogy. If you were to, okay, going back, all of you must have deployed CRMs at some place, or must have seen deploying CRM someplace. If you start using Salesforce today, tomorrow is your customer, is your lead conversion rate is going to double? The answer is no. Very similarly, I think it's also to do with the fact that what are your expectations from technology? The technology is definitely going to help you make it operationally more efficient, make it scale, all of that stuff. But you still have to do the experiments, iterating or figuring out the playbook, the right outcomes for you, for your customers. Their technology can nudge you in the right direction, but just by having a customer success platform will not put you immediately into this beautiful space of that we have nailed customer success. Customer success technology is going to be as good as your customer success practice, which fundamentally is going to be a lot of discovery, a lot of iterations, a lot of experimenting, is going to go through its maturity curve. Do not expect that to be nailed in the first month, first quarter. Frankly, if you can nail it in the first year, give yourself a pat on the back, and that's well done. Getting to the magical figure of 130, 140% MRR retention, and then constantly improving your operational efficiencies is a lot of moving parts, a lot of experiment, a lot of understanding, and I think, and then Ross will, if you invite Ross, then he'll say, hey, these are not outcomes, these are product usages. Then you have to go back and do it one more time. And yes, and we've seen organizations go through that. So I think it's not about when to bring in customer success tech. Frankly, we believe sooner the better. 50, 100 is your sort of benchmark. If you, that's where your Google Sheets and Excel sheets sort of start to feel limited and fail, because by then you can somehow define some structure, but there is no place to capture it. There is no place to put it in the process flow of the organization, make it sustainable, like Ross mentioned. But just by bringing in technology, we should not be expecting that next day magic's going to happen. I think their expectation matching is extremely important. We have in fact actually written a blog on that, pretty much mentioning the same. And one more thing that we insist, and I don't know if Ross will agree, likely he will, is making sure that the practice is getting evolved. You need one head of customer success. So just one CSM with tech, we won't recommend. Having at least a director or head of customer success is essential. A lot of times what we've also seen in the early stages, founders playing that role, but hey, let's accept it. Founders got 90 other problems to deal with. So at best, you're getting 10% attention to customer success. We don't call that head of customer success. We don't at least accept it. So we insist for more. Go ahead, Ross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. I think I would add to that, and this is indicative of a point that I'll make first, which is, and goes back to Ted's question around building the business case, when to invest. An investment in a customer success technology platform and the value you should expect from a customer success technology platform should be equated to an investment in any enterprise grade piece of technology for your business. And so the level of significance, the level of due diligence, the level of planning, the level of value you expect from investing in something big and sort of scary like a new CRM platform or ERP or whatever it could be. Think of the CS technology platform in that same category, because the maturity of products out there are able to deliver that type of enterprise grade value, but they also require to varying extents similar enterprise kind of grade consideration around how we get value from it, what is the business case, and so on. Do not think of customer success technology, and don't try and pitch CS technology to your board or to your CEO as being a bolt-on to your business and a plug-in to Salesforce or what have you, because you're gonna fall down when they look at the price tag, to be blunt, around ultimately the total cost of value or the total cost of ownership for a CS platform today. It's not a $5,000 a year bolt-on. We're talking about a more significant investment. So you need to build the appropriate business case. Similarly, in that vein of looking at and considering and planning for an investment and adoption of customer success technology as an enterprise grade type of investment, one thing we often see overlooked is the consideration of who's going to be the administrator for that piece of technology. Now, the administrator requirements of a customer success technology platform do vary by the platform that you may be looking at and the platforms available out there. But generally, forgetting about what the platform may or may not require around administrative responsibilities, just the best practice of having someone who has the skill set and the capacity to take on the accountability for being the administrator for what you're recognizing is an enterprise critical platform for your business in the form of the CS technology platform is very important, because to get value from your CS technology platform, you need to think about things like I've mentioned a few times, this role of data and the integration of data into your customer data platform, how that data is flowing through the technology platform to drive the execution of the playbooks that your CSMs are performing, to drive the scorecards and the dashboards and the reporting that your team is looking to leverage from the CS technology platform. That data piece alone needs some administration, because your data landscape inside your B2B SaaS company is constantly evolving. Data sources are changing, data sources are growing, additional data sources are coming in, they start breaking. And so that needs an administrative type of mindset. And again, whether that's an FTE dedicated to it, whether it's a part-time role, whether it's something that you use an external company to perform for you, all those options are worth considering. But know that you need that type of admin person. In addition to, Puneet, what you say, you need a leader to have sort of executive sponsorship of this investment and then accountability for its success, in the same way that you need your actual customer success technology users, i.e. probably your CSMs, to be on board with adopting the technology. Yep. And getting value from it, and being willing to change the way they do things today to integrate with the technology, and therefore be able to adopt and get value from it.
No, absolutely. And frankly, having worked in, I think, some 15 organizations, I'm yet to see an organization which has absolutely clean data. So while Ross is absolutely right, but there is no reason why you should be scared of that. So don't look at your own data and say, oh shit, we're not there yet. This is something that I think every organization, and as you evolve, you'll be producing more and more data, which makes it more and more, sort of challenging. So that alone shouldn't be a reason, but we and I'm sure Ross has helped and worked with lots of organizations where we can help you, sort of plan your way into cleaning the data and how you can phase it out rather than.
And I think that, I want to just make sure there isn't a misconception of, oh my God, any investment in a CS technology platform is some enterprise grade implementation. I mean, there's a difference between making the investment and considering and building the business case and timing the investment. There's a difference there to actually then starting and executing the journey of implementing and adopting and getting value from the customer success technology platform. That journey, that process of implementation and adoption should absolutely be a journey. And if you're looking at or being sort of told, hey, you have to buy this mansion of a customer success technology platform, and you're thinking, well, all I want is I just want to buy a kitchen and a living room. I'm not going to move into the east wing and the west wing of this platform anytime soon. Then you want to be able to ask the vendor that you're talking to say, well, how do I execute that as a journey? How do I just ideally make the investment, but then kick my implementation and adoption journey off just by focusing on, let's move into the kitchen and the living room. And we'll get into the east wing and the west wing and the indoor swimming pool at some point in this journey. And so it goes back again to this concept of thinking about outcome-based playbooks to say, hey, my journey, I'm going to stagger it by these outcomes. And onboarding is a great place to start to say, hey, I want to use this technology to operationalize and scale and automate where appropriate my onboarding strategy, i.e. my playbook that gets my customers to that first outcome or those first 2 or 3 outcomes. Start there and then work out. And that really lets you sort of focus in on, okay, let's prioritize the data identification, extraction, cleansing, whatever's needed just to achieve that particular playbook. And then iterate onwards. Because we certainly do not advocate, and nor should you feel compelled to be boiling the ocean when it comes to your implementation of a CS technology platform. There are scenarios out there where they are feeling compelled to do that, but that's not certainly what we prescribe and is not what is necessary.
No, absolutely. And I think those are some fantastic points. And Ross, I've got like 4 pages of notes full. So thank you so much. And I didn't realize, and Nilesh has been pinging me on my chat room privately saying we're running out of time here. So with that, Ross, thank you so much. I can clearly see we could barely touch all the topics we thought we will be able to. So we should be inviting you here again one more time for the part 2, and maybe this time we'll plan a part 3 in advance so that we are able to do the right deep dive. I think this is a wonderful session. I'm taking back so many things, and don't get me wrong, it's like, I was literally drawing out a UI which I think should go back, depicting that entire journey as you were speaking. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for attending. And Ted, I hope we were able to answer your question, and everybody else who joined, hope you find it valuable. Thanks a lot. Ross, if you want to say something before we close, feel free.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you again for having me, and to the CSBox team for inviting me. This has been great. As you can tell, I have a lot of passion about these subjects and love chatting away about them. Yeah, would love to certainly come back one day if anyone listening to this would like to sort of chat with me or my team further about any of these subjects. Then you can find us at valuizeconsulting.com. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me there, and Twitter and all that fun stuff. My email is ross@valuizeconsulting.com. Please feel free to drop me a line there as well. Yeah, Puneet, thank you again for your time. And as you know, I enjoy my conversations with you.
Absolutely, and definitely. And we have Ross's LinkedIn link in the chat if you guys wanna hit it up and get him active on LinkedIn. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ross. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Cheers.